Hello, this is Kevin Connor. I'm your instructor for this course, and I'm going to give you an introductory to this next session or section of the course, kind of the second half. This is when we're going to be dealing with software, how things are going to kind of run, and also kind of give you a preview of Chapter 10. Okay, this is going to be when we're going to be working in Office 365, so I'm assuming that you have that already installed on your computer, and also hopefully you do have the student files downloaded and unzipped. But I guess I'm going to go over that again just for those who have not done that yet. So and also I'm assuming that you have your textbook. I think most do. So again, these I'm going to kind of maybe come back to this later, and I'll be kind of moving around in my tabs and maybe doing split screens and stuff like that, and pausing and stopping stuff, just kind of skip around. So hopefully you have your textbook, because you really need it now, because we'll be following steps right out of the textbook. Okay. But this will be week 7. This will be chapter 10. This is going to go over the Office features, and we're just going to do the first half of this chapter, and I'll explain later why. But first, let's just go ahead and go over and talk about those student data files. And if you haven't done it yet, and I'm going to be using Google Chrome as my browser, and of course you can probably tell that I have a Windows-based machine. I have Windows 10, so things are going to be a little bit different for those who have the Mac. I don't have a Mac to do a demonstration on that particular operating system. But don't worry, I'll kind of go back to the book here. When I get through into this chapter, they will have hints, or they'll actually show you how to do things using a Mac built into this chapter. That's the one confusing thing about these chapters, and they're trying to show you how to do it in multiple ways, one of which is you'll hear a lot about my IT lab. That's kind of a supplement or an addition you can add to this book, which I do not use. It's kind of like their own little website that goes along with this book, but I don't use this because of the sheer extra expense it causes the students. So I don't really utilize it. We can do everything we can just without my IT lab. Okay. We'll go back here, and I actually made another link. Also, there's information up here in that first week's module on the student data files, and I actually have them in my instructor's notes too, instructions on about the student data files. We'll just go over it again. I'll click this, and again, when we come up here, it's not going to give you a preview because it's a zip file, but I'll click on this to download those student data files, and I've downloaded multiple times, and it's a big zip file. So before you can use a zip file, you have to unzip it or extract it or uncompress it. Okay. Again, if you're using Google Chrome, you'll get this little icon down here, or it's actually an option where you can just open it, show where it's at in the folder. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just open it. So I can use that command, or if I just click on the icon itself, it's going to open it. So when I open it in a Windows machine, it actually opens up a version of Windows Explorer or File Explorer. Okay, that's what it opens up. And right now, we're just kind of looking inside the zip folder. They're not unzipped. We're just seeing what's inside of it. And they do have an extract tool, like over here, extract all. You can use that if you want, if you're experienced and you like using that. But to me, a way that you can do it and do the same thing is simply just copy the files out of here. Okay, and really we don't need all of them. It's not horrible if we do get them all out of here. We really just need really chapters 10 through 18, and really not all of those, but we're just going to get them all out of there. So we need to select all of these. So there's several ways, one of which is I can click once to select that first folder. Then on my keyboard, I can't show you that, but on my keyboard I can hold down the Shift key and then click on the last folder, and that selects all the files. Okay, or I'm going to kind of click over here to deselect. You can kind of draw a little lasso. That's just kind of clicking, holding down your left mouse button and making this box. Anything inside that box gets selected. So I can come down here and click and then start going upwards by holding on my left mouse button, and every folder that gets touched gets selected. I could do it that way. And the last way, and this is kind of common to all operating systems, I kind of clicked away to deselect it. On your keyboard, it's a keyboard combination of the Control and A key. So if I hold on the Control key and click my A, it selects all my files. So whichever way you want, just select all those files inside of that zip file. Like that. I'll draw the lasso. I'll get them all here. Kind of moving a little slow here. Now I got them all. And now I'm just going to go hold my mouse over anywhere of that selected collection of folders, and then I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click, get that pop-up menu, and I'm simply just going to copy them. Okay, now they're in my Windows clipboard. Now we just got to have a place where we're going to save all of our files. Okay, and if you already done it, some of you might already put your files out on your desktop. You can do that. You can do that. That's fine. Make a folder out here and then save your files inside of them. Okay. In the book, they do kind of utilize this documents area, and they do also mention OneDrive. If you want to use your OneDrive, which if you have a Windows account and you're signed into it, it's just cloud storage. You're saving them on some server out on the internet for Microsoft. I'm just going to click on my documents area and see I got a bunch of stuff out here. Okay, but I'm going to make a folder that's going to hold all my files that I work with in this course. So I'm going to click up here on New Folder. It's going to make me a folder down here, and I'm just going to call it, I'll do SM for summer, CIS student files. I'll just call it that. You don't have to use the same name I do, but I'll call it that. Once I have the name in there, I'll hit my enter key once. That accepts the name, and now I'm going to hit it the enter key one more time, and that's going to open up that folder. And you can see up here in your path, I'm on this PC, which represents your computer. I'm inside my documents, and inside my documents I created a folder or directory called CIS student data files. Like I said, you can call it anything. Like I'm going to go back. I just clicked on my documents here. I'm going to right click on that folder. If you right click on it, you get more commands if you ever wanted to rename it. Okay, so I'll right click on it and I'll rename it, and it highlights what I got in there. So if I start typing in, it's going to replace what I got. Okay, let me call it something a little bit better. Summer CIS. Wouldn't 101 be a better name? Student files. And again, I'll hit enter to accept that name, and hit enter one more time to open it, and now you can tell what folder I'm in. And now, since I got that folder created and I've already got those folders in that zip file selected and copied, now I just need to paste them inside this folder, and that will do the extraction process. So I'll right click, there's my paste command, and here they come. It shouldn't take too long depending on the processing power of your computer. Okay, and once they're copied here, now these are the unzipped version. And when it comes to these student data files, like say we're going to be in Chapter 10, so I'll double click on that so I can look at those files in Chapter 10. And there's just a few. There's just a picture file and another zip file with other files inside of it. It all depends on the chapter. Like this one, we're only going to be really using that one picture file right there. That's all we're going to be using out of the student data files. It's just this picture file right here. In other chapters, like again, I get other videos on these. Like in Chapter 11, there is quite a few files. Some are going to be picture files or files that you're going to be using to make that document, like picture files. And there'll be other files like this W11B programs. This is going to be a file that you would open in Word. It's already going to be a partially completed document for an assignment. Like in this case, it's going to be for the 11B project. And you'll edit it and resave it underneath a new name. Okay, so it all depends on the chapter, which we're not definitely going to use all of these files. Definitely not going to be using all of these files. Okay, they'll just be listed. I have the assignments listed in each week's module, and they'll reference which files they want you to work with within those chapters. Okay, so we have our files. So I'm going to close this. Okay, and I'll go back to modules here. And again, I'll have the assignments all listed, or you'll be able to tell I'll have a drop box. We'll be using drop boxes in Canvas to submit completed assignments to me. Okay. All right. And it also listed in the assignments and activities page. Okay. Now in this, we'll kind of go to that, back to our book. Okay. And each chapter from now on will be a collection of projects. In this case, in this one, and this is kind of like within the tutorial of the chapter. Tutorial or just step-by-step guides. The author's going to walk you through these steps to create something. Okay, most times it's going to be a document or file created in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. Those are the three programs we'll use out of the Office suite. Okay, and this one actually has a typo in it. This particular chapter is just made up of two projects. Project A, and it should be 10A and 10B, but they got kind of a typo here. And let me kind of go to another chapter. Ooh, let me bring that back up. Let me see if I went to Word and went to chapter 11, it also is made up of, in the chapter itself, 11A and 11B. That's the actual chapter, working through the chapter. Like if I went, there's also projects that I'll assign at the end of the chapter, like end of chapter. I'll click on that. Here's like a summary and key terms, and here we have, here's actually project 11C, which is a summary, which I do assign. It kind of covers the things that you did in both 11A and 11B, and there's other ones too. Here's still 11C. Here's 11D. Okay, so I'll be doing the projects within the chapter and at the end of the chapter. Let me work my way back to chapter 10. That's an introduction to Office, really. And with this one, it pops up here. We're only going to be doing 10A out of this one. And that's it. Nothing at the end of the chapter. And we're not doing 10B. Why I'm not doing 10B? Because that is really just using Windows. And I know a lot of you have Mac. So there's really nothing that people with a Mac computer can do. But if you are a kind of a newer user to computers, or you want to really work on your skills, especially when it comes to file management. This is what this is using Windows 10 and file management. So if you want some more practice on that, and you do have a Windows machine, please work through this chapter. Definitely work through this chapter, or this project within chapter 10. Okay, we're just going to be doing 10A. So I'll move on to that. And at the beginning of each chapter, they'll give you a preview of what that document's going to look like when you're done. Okay, and this is always a good thing to go back to, just to kind of see how yours aligns up with the finished product. They do give you screenshots throughout, but this is like a full picture of it. And please do not try to complete this document like this is a simple Word document by just looking at this picture. You'll never get it to line up. You'll never get the formats to be correct. And really, there's some formats you really can't see from this picture. There actually is a page format that's not really showing up at all on this preview. There should be some shades of gold at the top and the bottom. So please, this is just a preview. No steps to complete. It just kind of gives you, and here they're talking about My IT Lab. You're going to have to ignore this stuff, okay? Because we're not going to be using My IT Lab. All right? So always look for this non-My IT Lab submissions. And again, this is just kind of a preview of what you're going to do. In this one, this particular project is it's going to be a blank document. You're going to create a folder to store it in, and then follow the project instructions how to complete this document. Okay, so I'll move on to the next page. And when it comes to these chapters, there will be just areas where it's just going to explain techniques. This is like if you're using a touch screen, and just discussing what you're going to see in the book. Okay, it actually talks about the Mac OS, so please read through this. And we're going to be using the full-blown desktop application, because there are desktop applications and then there's web applets. And there may be some of you that have really just spent a lot of time on a web applet. Like for those who have used nothing but Google Docs or Google Sheets, you're using a web applet, which runs through a web browser. Okay, Microsoft has their version. Okay, and that's kind of the first thing I'll cover. And when I go over this chapter, I'm just going to kind of go over not everything. I'll let you go through the chapter and read in detail, but I'll go over a lot of it, especially in this particular first chapter, but not everything. Okay, this one, when you see these right here, the numbered steps, this is when you're taking some sort of action. So they're called activities. Okay, you're actually doing something. This is just going to start Word, and this is the one thing I do want to cover. For those of you that may not know the difference between a desktop application and a web applet. Usually web applets are just like a subset or a smaller, should I call it weaker, less robust, maybe be a better term, version of an application. Okay, so this just wants you to start up Word, and I'll kind of go over that. I'm just going to want you to go to your Start button, okay, and start up Word. And it all depends on you may be using someone else's computer that already has Word installed on it, so there may be different ways you can access the different programs that make up the Office suite. Okay, like I'll just kind of minimize this real quick. You may have an icon out here on your desktop. My desktop's kind of messy, so they may already have it here. They may already have it down here on your desktop. Okay, they may already have it down there, or sorry, on your taskbar. But you're always going to be able to get all your applications on a Windows machine. Again, this is just Windows here at your Start button. So if I click that, you can see I already got here's my Start button. I already got a couple of shortcuts pinned to my Start button or my Start menu. Okay, I already have Word and Office. Now that's what thing I want to explain now is over here in this listing here, these are all your applications. And as we go down through this, you can see, like you'll see shortcuts or icons to the Office products. Right here's Access. That's one of the products in the Office suite dealing with databases. You come down here, there's Excel. We'll be using that in a few weeks. And then you will see an actual icon that says Office. Now that's kind of confusing. Don't click on that one. When I click on the one that just says Office, I'll click on it. They want you to log into the web version or to the web applets. Okay, I've already am already logged into that here. If you logged into office.com or if you logged into that dialog box, you would come here and you do have access to these web applets. These are scaled down versions of the full-blown ones. To where I'll click on this, I'll click a blank document. And you can see it does look familiar. It does look familiar. Sorry to pause there for a sec. It does look familiar, but these are really not all of the commands that come with Microsoft Word, because this is a web applet. It runs through your web browser, and really when you work with these, you're issuing commands through the web browser, but it's not going to a program that's installed on your machine. It's actually sending those commands kind of synchronous to a web server out on the internet, and on the web server the actual commands are getting executed, nothing locally. And really this is kind of those who probably need better file management skills. A lot of times your file management is kind of automated, where it saves automatically, gets put somewhere automatically, and sometimes it's kind of hard to understand where they're actually going. But these will all be saved online. But we're not going to use that. I'm going to close that down. I'm actually just going to close this down. We're going to use the full-blown ones installed on your computer. So if I click the Start button, and I'll go back down again. And if you do want to pin them to your Start menu so they kind of show up right here, I'll go down and let me find Excel. If I find Excel and if I right-click on it, you can pin it to Start. Adds an icon out here, and you can grab it and you can drag it wherever you want it. Okay, but we'll go all the way down to the bottom because it's W. We'll start up Word. Okay, let me kind of split my screens here. So I'm going to drag this over to where I can see this. I'm going to close this one down. Let me see. I don't want, I got that one. I can see this in my book, but I'm kind of going to move them around. I like this one over here. And that over there. Here's my book, and here's my actual Word program. Let me close on this menu so I can kind of zoom out. So I kind of show you. They're just going to, in this case, when you're working through this, they're gonna talk about it here. Start Word, compare your screen. Again, mine looks a little bit different because I actually have documents created. This is going to be your most recent documents you've created. Okay, this one shows nothing because there's nothing been created in this version of Word. And then I'll click the next screen, and they're just going to have you create a blank document, just a blank one. And they're going to talk about the ribbon, kind of the interface, and briefly the ribbon's comprised of these tabs, which are going to house groups of related, these are called command groups of related commands. Like, we're going to have home, insert, design, layout, references, mailings, review, view, help, the help system. Like say when I go to the insert, these are just commands to insert content in your document. Go to references. You'll definitely be doing a chapter on this. Like say you got to do a research-based paper. You have commands to do that. Okay. The home's kind of like a hybrid. This is going to be the collection of commands, and they're not going to all show here because I got to like maximize my screen. That it kind of looks the same. If you got to use electronic book like I'm using, it's a collection of your most used commands. And when I say there's a command group, like here's the clipboard command group, the font group, paragraph group, styles, editing, voice, and so on. And like say in this font group, this is the collection of the most used commands in the font group. But if you want to see them all, you got this more button right here. And you click that and it opens up actually what they call a dialog box, which gives you all of the possible font commands. Okay, so you have the ribbon, which is made up of tabs, and in each tab you have collections of command groups. Okay, let me see how can I do my screen. And it talks about that here, and on the next page it really goes into detail. So be sure to read that. Now for each chapter, it's going to want you to create a folder just for the files that you work with in that chapter. Even if you have to go into the student files and get files out of it, they're going to come and be stored inside of this folder. So they're going to talk about creating a folder for file storage, and this is where it's going to get the most trickiest in this first chapter only. First off, I'm going to get rid of that little pop-up there. It's just going to talk about files and folders. Just kind of give you a brief explanation of those. We're creating files, and we're going to be storing those in folders just to organize our files. And it is going to discuss different ways to, or where you can save them. That's why we're going to talk about the OneDrive. For those of you that do have the more experience, and if you want to use a OneDrive, or if you wanted to use your Google Drive, you're more than welcome to do that. Should be able to follow the steps and utilize these cloud folders. Again, you're just accessing your files from a server that's out on the internet. Okay. Now, why it gets kind of confusing, and I might just skip ahead and then come back, because right here it wants you to decide where you want to store your files for this project and any other project. Okay. In that, I'm just going to skip ahead so I kind of make a point as we do this. They're always going to, this book is really kind of want you to, well, they do want you to utilize MyITLab, but again, we're not going to use it. You always got to look for this, for the non-MyITLab submissions, because they really want you to go for every chapter and go out and just get the files for that chapter. We're not going to do it. Like in the beginning of this video, we went out and we already got all the student data files. We already got it. We don't need to keep going back out and unzipping files from their MyITLab site. We're always going to do this right here. These non-MyITLab submissions. So be sure to read those, and you can just kind of skip over where it says MyITLab, but you still got to read that chapter. Or sorry, not that chapter, but that paragraph. But I'll kind of go back. In the very beginning, they're first going to go out and make a folder to store this document. Okay, in other chapters you'll have multiple documents to store in them. Okay, and they're not going to come down here to Windows Explorer. They're just going to come up and go to the File menu of Word or Excel, and I'll click on the File menu. It's going to talk about the Backstage view, which this is. First they talk about the info. We'll kind of do this later, in that to where you give it information about your document called metadata. Metadata is simply data about data. Kind of like ways to describe your document and or tags that you can add to find your document in case you had to search for it. It's almost like how the same way that they create web pages that you use Google to search for. They have these little tags and properties of those tags to identify it. But they're going to have you, that's on the info portion of the Backstage. We're going to go to the Save As. This is where you actually save a new document or save an existing document under a new name or location. Okay, and you will have, if you are signed in Office, your OneDrives will show up there. If you do have Google and you added their Google Sync, your Google Drive might even show up here. Okay, but they're going to have actually even in these steps, they're going to have you save them locally on a local machine. Okay, and right here is a note for those who use Mac. They'll do guidance. I'll show you more of those later. But we're going to go to this PC. We're going to do that. Okay. And at this point on this PC, I'm going to go ahead and click this browse. I think that's what they're going to do on this one. Let me kind of skip ahead. Backstage view. Here's where they click the Save As. Talk about the OneDrive. You have a Save As, and they're going to click the browser. Opens this up. Opens up this little dialog box. Okay, and this is where you can navigate to save your files. Okay, on this side is where you can navigate the folders and drives on your machine, and over here on this side is where you can see the contents of what's inside of those drives and folders. You can see you might see duplicate stuff here. Okay, at the top is kind of the quick access. These are going to show the places you've been most recently, and down below they'll actually show the actual areas to where you can save stuff at. Actually, your drives on your machine and some folders that are already created on your Windows machine. And we're going to put ours in the Documents area. Okay, because if you remember, when I showed you I downloaded that student data files, I already created a folder in the Documents area. If I scroll down, right there it is. Summer CS Student 1 Student Data Files. Now if you want, and I would suggest you do this, save everything right inside that same folder. If you want, you can make a separate folder for each chapter outside just within the documents area, but I'm going to put mine inside of that student data files folder that I created earlier. So double click on to open it, and there's the student data files. I'm not going to save them in any of those folders. I'm going to come up here and make a new folder just like they have you do here, and they do give you the names. Right here they have you click new folder. Right there, new folder. Okay, and then I call that folder Office Features Chapter, again, 1. That's another typo. Should be, I guess you can follow that. It's just because this is the new edition of the book, so I imagine they're going to have some typos, because in an earlier edition, Office was Chapter 1, or this introduction to Office was Chapter 1. But I'm going to click new folder, and it creates a new folder, and it kind of gives you gives it a generic name, just new folder. If you did another one, it'd be new folder 1, new folder 2. It's highlighted, so as soon as you start typing, you can replace what's there, in this case new folder, with the name you want to call that folder. And this one, I'm just going to start typing Office Features Chapter, and I'm going to go ahead and call it 10, because we're actually in Chapter 10 of this book. Now, once I have the name, it's not accepted yet. I'm going to, on my keyboard, hit the Enter key once. There, accepted the name. Okay. If you made a mistake and you want to fix that mistake, like you got a typo in the name, once you hit the Enter key, then you could right click on it again, like I showed you earlier, and do the rename command to rename it. Okay. If you make a mistake, I'm just going to tap my Escape key to get out of that menu. And now I want to save this document inside of that. Okay, and this is when we're kind of getting down to this 4 non-MyIT Lab submissions down here at the bottom of page 376. I'm not in that folder yet. If I want to go into that folder, I can double click on it right here and it's going to open it up, but I'll go back. If you got it selected like that, you got it highlighted in that list, you can come down here and click the open button, and that will open it. And now you can kind of see your path. I'm on this PC, which is my PC we're on. We're inside of My Documents. We created this folder for our student data files, and inside of that, I created this folder for just this chapter. Okay. Now I got to come down here to the file name, and again, you can see it's already highlighted. If you want, you can, because I want to change it, I want to edit it. You can click in it if you want, and then just backspace it out for those who are used to that, if you want to do it that way. Or I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Let me go back up again. If I'm in that folder, well, I can't do it now since I backspace it out, but you can just start typing in if it's already highlighted. That's the point I was trying to make. And it gives you the name right here. And I'm going to highlight this, even though that pop-up shows up on my electronic copy of the book. That's the full name. It's always going to have your last name, first name, and then describe the document. In this case, it's Office Features 10A Chef's Notes. Okay. And I'll go ahead and write out, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But it's going to be your last name, not last name, your actual last name, underscore your first name, underscore office, underscore features, hopefully I don't get any typos here, underscore chef, underscore notes. And you wonder why we got to put in all those underscores. In Windows, empty spaces are fine in their folder or file names are fine. But in some different operating systems out there, they don't like those spaces. And that's why the author always puts those underscores. Especially, it's a good idea, especially if you go, I guess it's a good idea if you go between Windows and Google or Windows and Mac, because they do use different operating systems. And I'm not 100% sure about Macintosh, but I know when it comes to Unix systems and like that, they don't like those underscores, so that's why they put those in there. But all your file names will be made up just like this, your last name, first name, and then they'll give you something that describes that document. And always save under the default type, your .docx. Please do not save them as PDFs. No assignment Don't save any assignment under a PDF or any other file. Just use the default. For Word, it's .docx. Excel will be XLSX. Okay, and we'll go over that, show that in a later video. But I'll go ahead and save it. So now we're actually going to start in creating this document. Okay, kind of go here a few. Oh, I guess I'll stop right here. This one, here's some Mac tips about creating those folders and files right here. All right. Now the one thing that I want to have you do, and I kind of come over here to Word, and sometimes I got to click a couple times to switch windows, is that they're going to make sure you have, and I'm on the Home tab, I'm in the Paragraph group, I'm right here, and Show Hide the All Characters. These are putting in, and I'll zoom in, down here in my zoom bar, putting non-printing characters. It just indicates things that you've done. Like this is the end of paragraph marker. You get that every time you hit the enter key to start a new paragraph. And when you see instructions over here and they talk you, I'll add another paragraph. So I got three paragraphs. Everybody knows what an actual English paragraph is according to MLA or APA. When it comes to these instructions in the book, if it says go to the first paragraph or last paragraph, they're usually indicating these paragraph markers. That's the first one, that's the second paragraph, that's the third paragraph, even though these are all blank. That's in the instructions, that's what they want you to do, is go to that end of paragraph marker. So you get those for new paragraphs, hit the space bar, you get dots, hit the tab key, you get arrows, and there's a few other, especially when you're inserting content, it'll add other characters, but they're all non-printing. They do help you to indicate what you're doing in your document. If something doesn't align up right, you can kind of help you figure out what's going on, especially if like things are going off onto 2 pages where you don't want them to. It could be because you have an extra paragraph in your document that you can't see unless you have these characters, all characters, showing. See, it looks like I'm right here clear on the third paragraph, but you really can't tell unless I have those all paragraph markers or characters turned on. Okay, so they want those turned on for every chapter. All right, and they'll talk about other things, about the rulers and things of that nature. Let me see. Go on to the next page. Again, they'll talk about the non-printing characters. And here's when they're in the step 4 on page 378, they're actually going to have you type in your first content and type it in as it shows in the instructions. You can use the actual written instructions, and please read these in detail. Try not to skim, because sometimes they do stuff on purpose is to prove a point. Okay, and so sometimes they'll actually have you misspell words just to show you another command. So that's what they're actually doing this very first one, which makes it confusing. Can move that off of there. They're misspelling grill on purpose. So we're typing in skyline grill with an E info. Okay, and they're just showing you how. They're showing how to both edit and format a document. Okay, in this point, they're going to show you how to edit a document. Editing is changing what it says. Formatting is changing how it looks. In this case, they're going to show you how, and you got to read the instructions, how they're either going to have you use your arrow keys on your keyboard or use the mouse. Like in this case, they're going to show you how to go back and backspace out that E off a grill. That's what they want you to do. And then they want you, let me see, make sure I do this right. Place insertion plate to the left of I and info. So that's where you kind of got to read for detail. And then they want you to type in chef. Again, how I can insert characters in my document. Then hit the space bar. Okay, and they're talking about how this, that little blinking bar right there is called the insertion point. That's where your next character or anything else you insert in your document is at. And you kind of can see when I hold my cursor over the commands, it turns in your typical arrow like you'd find in Mac or Windows, but when I hold it over my Word document, it changes to that I-beam. That's to move that insertion point around in your document to edit it, or to insert, or delete, whichever way you can do it. Or you can use your arrow keys to move the insertion point. Okay, but I can only go as far as I've been in my document. I'm already into the second page, or sorry, I'm only into the first line, so I can't go down to a second line unless I move it down there. So now I can use my up and down arrow keys to move around in the document, but I can only go as far as I've been in my document, moving the insertion point. And that's where they're kind of discussing that portion here. Okay, and then it wants you to, they actually want us to show you how to use a backspace. Now it wants me to delete out using the delete key. It's like if you wanted to use the backspace key to get rid of something, you got to make sure your insertion point is on the right. Like if I wanted to get rid of info and go this way using the backspace key, I got to have my insertion point right there. Backspace goes from right to left. If I want to use the delete key, get rid of info, that goes from left to right. So I got to put my insertion point in front of the I. It's going to be deleting this way. Okay, but they're going to have you go back to, that's what they're kind of again going in this chapter, kind of the long and roundabout way, but they just want to get rid of info and replace it with notes. All right, and again, inside the chapter you can find how to do it with Macs. It's got it built right in for those Mac users. So you may have to make sure you read that, because your keyboard and the commands will be a little bit different in Mac. A lot of them will be the same, but there are some different ways of doing things in the Mac. Okay, and again it's talking again just how to insert. Again, they're inserting more information, and just kind of follow along. I'm just going to kind of move ahead because I think you'll be able to pick this up fine. I'm just going to add this content just so we can move along. It's going to hit the Enter key to add a new paragraph, and then it's going to misspell executive, just to show you that particular feature of correct spelling. And actually even change this name to, it's got auto correction. Sometimes when you type these in, don't be surprised if it just corrects it on its own. Okay, if this is a common mistake, it may just do an auto correction. But if not, if anything that's misspelled, it puts a squiggly line, and then it's going to go over this. You can right click on it, and it's give you choices of what it thinks you want it spelled as. Okay, of course I want executive. Okay, if it does auto correction all on its own, it may have a little pop-up saying if you want to turn off the auto correction feature, because it could be an acronym to something that you're spelling in. Okay, let me see. I'm trying to move along. They show you how to highlight something. Highlight a whole collection of characters and then just type over top of them. That's why they do this. So for those who are kind of experienced, this may seem a little silly, but for those who are new, this really is what they're kind of going after. They're thinking that you don't know anything about word processing. And here they're going to talk about editing. I'm going to kind of skip over that. I'm just kind of moving along, trying to keep my video as short as possible. And I'm going to go over these next few pages, in that I just want to kind of go over when they apply commands, and they will explain this in detail in this chapter. There's going to be page level commands that affect the entire page, paragraph level that affects the entire paragraph, and there is character level that affects every single character in your document. This first one, they're going to do a page level, which you're going to add colors. That's that color that you can't see in that very first preview of the document that we're creating. They're going to have you come to the Design tab, and here they're going to have you had a page color. And if I drop that down, I'm going to get this color palette, and this is a palette. We haven't talked about themes yet because there are different themes, but this is the kind of the color palette that comes with the default theme of a default Word document, blank document. And I'm not clicking anything. This is called, and they'll discuss it, it's called the live preview. If you just hold your cursor over a command, like a formatting command, it will give you a live preview without actually applying it. Okay. So go over the color palettes. You know, with these color palettes, you always have the primary colors at the top. These are like the full colors. And then they'll have variants down below. Like here's, and they'll give you this orange accent too, but down here they'll have shadings of that orange. And when they specify a command, you can see they got names. You hold your cursor over it, does have the name. And same thing happens with commands too. Let me escape out of that. If you have a command you're not quite sure what it is, if you hold your cursor over it, it will bring a pop-up explaining it. Okay, I'm not clicking on it, I'm just holding my mouse cursor over it. We're here at page colors. It's actually going to have, not use one of these, not more colors where you can create your own color, or right here's a command you can get rid of any colors you applied. They're going to go to the fill effects. They're going to have you just, and again there's different tabs here. You put textures, patterns, picture if you got it. Okay, we're just going to use the gradient, kind of a fade in, fade out. Then I'm going to apply a single color. Okay, then the color, let me see, that's one thing I better make sure I get the right color. Granulating effects, it's a shade of the gold. I just want to make sure, because when they have you pick out a color, they're usually going to tell you the column and then what row to get that color from. Okay, and they're simply going to go click color, and then right here in the 8th column point to the second color. So I come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is a gold, and they're going to put this light shade of gold. It's actually gold accent for lighter 80%. You click that. Then you can adjust it further here, and I think a lot of people miss this step right here. Make sure you read these in detail, okay? Because it's really just a faint color, so they're going to put it all the way to its lowest setting. So it's going to put a slight color, and then it's going to, I think it's going to come from the corner. So in the styling, shading stylings, how it's going to be applied to the page, it's going to come down for the corner, but from the variant it's going to come down from the right and change as it goes to the left. So it wants this variant. So read these instructions, and it's going to show you right here all the settings at once. So really when I apply it and say OK, this dialog box just puts that light shading on it. And when you see colors from your book and compare it to your screen, they may be, especially if you get the printed book, they may be different. That's just a calibration between your monitor and what's actually, whatever printer they use to print this book. They may not be the same, because if you do get in professional design or graphic design and you got a computer and you got your printer, sometimes you do got to calibrate your screen colors to your printer's colors. But we're not going to go into that. Okay, I've kind of zoomed in on our document here. It should be on the Home tab too. Go into that. Just I want to go over character level formats. When I say character level, every character, like I'm just going to highlight that first S in Skyline. Every character in your document can have its own collection of formats. And a lot of these are really from this font group. Okay, like this one, I could add its own font, which is this collection of whatever. Well, fonts are just, there's serif, sans serif, monospace, proportional fonts. They don't really go too much in font theory, but it can have its own font, which is a collection of shapes, sizes, and weights. In this case, I can apply Times New Roman. I can apply the bold style, make it italicized, underline, and apply colors if I wanted to, or styles. Okay. In this case, I'm going to kind of back those out. I'm going to apply it to all of these characters. There we go. Back to the beginning. So if I want to apply it to multiple characters, these character level formats, I have to take my cursor, my I-beam, and select over. I'll go across from left to right, then I'll go down, select all the characters that I want to apply them to. And with everything, or any type, whether it be, I guess, character or paragraph level, do you see how I kind of got that in the paragraph marker highlighted too. If I apply that, like in this case, they're actually going to be applying first a style. In this case, these styles are these collection of formats, like they're for specific types of content, like the title. That just selects a font size. Okay, in this case, I think that's just it, this font and font size. I can apply it to all those characters. As you see, it's calibrated light now with a 28 point font. And font size, when I say points, it's got 8, 9, 10. You can either choose the list that you want to make the font size, or you can type them in. Okay, when I say a point, that's the measurement they typically use in word processors. A point is 1/72 of an inch. Okay, so of course, if I got 36, actual font size is half an inch. 72, of course, is an inch. I got it zoomed in, that's why it looks so big, but in this case it chooses 28 as 28 point. But since I applied any formats to that inner paragraph marker, if I hit the enter key, it carries those down. Okay, so they have you do that. They have you apply font level, and then they'll have you apply a paragraph level. Probably guess some of these formats or settings in the paragraph group. That affects the overall paragraph. So I don't have to have everything in that paragraph highlighted. I just have to be in that paragraph. They're going to be dealing with your alignments here. Like right now, it's defaultly aligned left, where you have a solid left margin. Of course, you know margins, that's the space between the edge of the paper and where your text begins. That's your margin. It always kind of frames them in white space. So I have a solid left margin, and if the line has to break down automatically or do word wrapping, as they kind of talk about in, I think, the next chapter. Yeah, the next chapter will talk about word wrapping. It does it on the right side. So that's where you kind of have your uneven edges. So that's left align. Center align, it just breaks it equally on each side. You have right align, which is just the opposite of left align. I guess the coefficient, solid left, does the breaking on the right. And then full justification, where that makes exactly equal margins on both sides. It'll add space. It'll add space to it. Okay, but these are going to be center lines. So again, I don't have to have all that selected. Just be inside that paragraph. So I can make it a center line. If I want to make the next line center line, I'll click down in it and make it center aligned. Or if I just want to do them together, then I can just kind of highlight. I don't need to highlight them all. As long as that selection goes into both of those paragraphs, then I can center align them. Okay, the next thing they're going to have you do is on these, they're going to do another font level style, or font level format, excuse me. So I'm going to have to make sure I select all of these characters. Going to apply to everything. And they're going to have you, and again, if you don't know the name of command, this also helps you. They want you to go to the text effects and typography. So if you don't know actually where a command's at, if you just hold your cursor again over top of it, you can find it. And with this, kind of adds, really these up here are collections of these individual formats down here, like glow, reflection, shadows, outlines. They got some pre-made ones right here. And again, if you just hold your cursor, it gives you a live preview. And I think even in this chapter, they have you add one, then change it, and then add a different one, just to show you how, if I added this, if I wanted to change it, I can just select it again, or hit the undo and go back, and I can apply another one. I think they actually have you add this one. Let me just make sure on that, which, yes, it was. It was the first row, fifth effect. So 2, 3, 4, 5 is this one right here. They have you choose that one as the fill effect. Okay, periodically, and they'll talk about this quick launch or quick access, not quick launch, quick access toolbar. This is the one part of the ribbon that you actually can customize or you can add commands to it. They'll talk about that. But periodically, even though it does do auto save, don't trust that. Come up here and click the little, if those you don't want that icon is, that some of us old people, it's been computing for a long time, that's kind of an image of an old floppy disk. That's just the standard save icon in Windows, is that little floppy disk right there. Click that, it saves your updates. And I'm gonna do a split screen here again. In that, let me zoom back out. Let me say I'm at 100%. Be sure though, sometimes they'll add spaces to your document. Okay, so be sure you add the correct amount. In this case, we're going to add 3 because they're going to actually add a picture, and this is going to be the first student file you're going to use. Insert a picture, and they'll do them both ways. I'll go to my insert menu, they'll go to pictures. You're either going to go from this device, that's where we're going to go out and get one of those data files, or though in another chapter they'll go online. We'll talk about that in a later video. But this one's going to go to this device. Now we got to find those student data files. Now some of you may have put them on the desktop. In this video I put them on the documents area, so I'll go there. There it is, CMCS 101 student data files. I'll double click on that. We're doing chapter 10, and it's going to do this chef picture right there. So I'm going to click that. I can double click it and insert it, or I can just click it once and then click the insert. Okay, and don't worry if it's really big. I'm kind of maybe move my screens over here a little bit. Let me kind of do another split so I'm got things split up correctly. That way when I drag, I can make one smaller and one bigger. Still not split for some reason, but because I may have to go back and forth, because when the first point, and I guess I'll just make my screen big here, is that, you know, of course it's a big picture, so sometimes you may want to zoom out or zoom in to be able to see it better. Okay, whichever works best for you. I'll kind of just leave it to where it's at. The first thing I want to mention is I was talking about those tabs on the ribbon. This is the first time we've clicked on something where it adds a contextual tab. This is a tab, sometimes you get one. In this case, if I have a picture selected or a graphic, I'll get some tools just to work with pictures. Okay, if I click away, that tab goes away. If I click that picture, that tab comes back. And also when you see, if I have the picture, they do come with sizing handles and this little handle up here that you can, if you wanted to rotate it. Okay, let's undo that. Okay, just remember to get that picture format, you got to make sure you have the picture selected. It's called a contextual tab. And here they'll have you add some, like one, they'll have you put a style, and again they'll tell you, like in this case, that they'll tell you to add a fourth one. Again, you have the live preview. Okay, just maybe holding it set, and you do have a more button. This is not all the picture styles, which are just, again, collection of other formats all in one to make it easy to apply special effects to your picture. Click the more button, you get them all. Okay, but in this case I'll click it to go back. I think they want you to put the for style, which is kind of the square but has the shadow. They'll also have you size it. So picture tools or picture format, they'll have you come and adjust the height in the size. You can use the sizing handles, but they'll give you specific sizes and they'll keep it in proportion. Like if I can use the dials to kind of, in this case, make it bigger. I can make it smaller, or you can highlight what's inside of that box. In this case, I think they wanted it 2 inches. It keeps in proportion. If I adjust the height, it will automatically adjust the width to keep it in proportion, like this. Okay, I'm kind of zoom back out. Let me zoom back in here. Okay, zoom back out. So I'll have you adjust the size. When you click on the picture, you also will see this. This is layout options, and you do have in this box, you do have access to some of these controls up here, but they're kind of a quick access. I'll have you do with the text wrapping. Right now it's kind of in line where it actually behaves just like a single character within your document. So if you wanted to move around, you actually have to use the layout command, or sorry, the alignment commands on the home tab. But these down here will allow your picture to kind of float, but it's just how the text is going to wrap around it. In this case, it's going to have you choose top and bottom to where, once I have that set and I'll click away, it kind of floats. But when it comes to text, it's always going to wrap either the top or the bottom of the picture. All depends on where you drag it to. Okay, let me kind of grab that. It's not really kind of moving kind of slow on my machine here, but it's also going to be dragging around to align it. Let me kind of maybe do my split screen here, because we're going to talk about these handles here to help you align it. If somehow, like in my case, that bar, it's just moving slow on my machine for some reason. I think it's because I'm recording too. Just kind of get it close. If that, see, you can kind of see in the picture here that center alignment button. If it doesn't show up, just try to get it kind of in the center of the screen as best as you can. That's all right. And really, when you look at your paragraph marker, your anchor marker, it should be anchored to that paragraph marker right there. So you should have two above it and one below it as you move on to adding the next things or your next item in your document. I kind of moved ahead in the chapter where they add these menu items, and it's really kind of going over how to use the quick access menu bar. In that, if I highlight, I'm going to go back, if I highlight this, I want to apply formats to this first line in this menu items. This pops up to where I can change the font. Okay. Some of the ones they want you to bold, italicize it, apply a color, and I've already applied the color to this paragraph up here, so let me kind of go back and highlight that, because as soon as you leave it, kind of that menu goes away. It's actually, I could choose one that another color from the palette, but as you can see, it will list right there your current color that, or the last color item that you've already selected, so it's kind of a recent color. So I'll select that. Okay, and I don't think font color, they don't add anything besides that, but they want you to apply those same formats to these other, to the actual menu items. That's kind of a title up there. So you could individually, or you can use the format painter up here on the home tab in the clipboard group. Okay, now first you want to have the content that you want to copy. The format painter only copies formats, just like its name. So I'm going to select that first paragraph, or that paragraph, the first one, that one, this paragraph in the list, or really just anything. I really could just select that one word, as long as I just have the formats I want to copy. But in the instructions, I think they have you select the entire line there. Now, if I click the format painter once, I can apply it to one other item. If I double click it, I can apply it to as many items as I want. I just got to make sure I turn it back off once I'm done. Like in this case, if I just click it once, you can see the I-beam will turn a little bit different when you held over text. If you use an I-beam with a little paintbrush, it'll apply it to whatever you select with it. Just because I'll select appetizers, and then it automatically turns off. Okay. If I select the text I want to get my formats from, I double click it. I think I got it double clicked. Let me try that again. I don't think I double clicked very good. Kind of move my mouse. Double click. It stays on until I turn it off. So I'm going to apply it to salads, main dishes, desserts, but it stays on. I got to make sure I come up here and click it once to turn it off. Again, I kind of skipped ahead, and I pretty much got the actual document done. And again, it will talk about fonts, font size. You see I kind of moved things around and added stuff, cut, copy, and paste. It talks about that. I'm just going to kind of go over the section on finalizing your document. I guess there should be one thing real quick. It's pretty easy. Um, they do just before that, and it's right up here. If you go click on that picture, drop down the layout options. Let me see, I thought it was in here. Let me go back up to the picture tools. It should have a section. Oh, right here, alternate text. If you click that, that actually opens up like a sidebar. That's just a command that opens up a sidebar. This, in this case, it automatically puts alternate text. This is for accessibility, like screen readers. And you can edit this. I think they do have you edit that alt text for accessibility. But once you're done with the sidebar, all you gotta do is close it and it brings it back. Okay, now we're going to finalize it. They're always going to have you put your document name in the footer. They'll have you do that for every document, even Excel and PowerPoint. Just slightly different ways to do that. To insert that, we'll go to the insert menu. Again, headers and footers have repetitive content at the top if it's a header, top of every page, or at the bottom if it's a footer. I know we just have a single page document, but that's what footers are. So I'll click that footer in the Insert tab, and you can see there's a bunch of pre-formatted ones. We don't want that. We want to actually go to the Edit Footer. As you can see, it opens a contextual tab just with tools to work with the footer or the header. You can use these and formatting tools on the other tabs, but this is actually what you want to, if you want to insert content, in this case in the footer. We want to come over here to the Insert group, drop down Document Info, and put in file name. Once you have that inserted in, and again, while they have a file name, just to identify the file that this comes from you. And once you have that inserted, if you want to go back to and actually work to the body of the document, excuse me, you can close it up here where it says close header footer, or you can just double click in a blank spot of your document. But I'll just click the close header and footer. And if you wanted to go back to it, say, let me maximize mine. Let me see. Or I'm messing all up here, going all over the place. If you want to actually see it, if you go to your file menu and then go to your print, you don't have to print it. In this case, I'll just make that any document you don't have to print, but if you go to the print, it will give you a print preview of how your document's going to look. I got my picture a little over there. I must have accidentally moved it. Let me go back. Yeah, I think I do. Got it kind of goofy. Let me make sure my layout options are the same when I moved it. Yeah, it should be top to bottom. Now I got to move it in the right spot. There we go. Now I got it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Now I got it. I had my layout options. Just give me a moment here. I'll fix my stuff here. And I got to get it. See, that's a perfect example of having your all characters. I accidentally hit the enter key one time. That's why it's off on the 2 pages. So if I click there, I can backspace it out. Now I just have 1 page. See? Fix my own mistakes. And it's a good example for you. But now I got my file name in the footer that I can see. And then they'll have, of course, finalize it, you'll have to come to the file, go to the backstage, go to the info, and they're going to have you fill out some of these properties. Okay, so just make sure if you want to put in a property, go to the property. They'll have you give a title. They'll have you give tags or keywords. This is kind of the default set. If you want to see all the properties you could fill out, you come down here and you select all properties. Like one I kind of get a lot of emails on is the subject. That's once you put in the course name. In this case, in the subject, there's the actual property here. Over to the right of it, you can click and actually add something to that property. Just type in CIS 101 and just follow the instructions in the book to add the other properties. And I guess it's kind of a good point. You can see that auto save working right here under manage documents, but don't rely on it. Okay. So I'll have you do that. I think there's one more thing that we really, maybe I'll just cover quickly. Try to keep this video as short as possible. I think I'm over an hour now. I think they had, this is kind of a new feature to this version of Word. It's in the insert and these 3D models. If you just click right on the icon, like right up here, it opens up a search box. And this, I guess, make a good point. Like they want you to search cupcake. In my searches, I'm only just getting a single one, which is okay. Because I think they do state in the chapter that you might get a couple of pictures up here. And I think this kind of works the same with clip art when you go online. They're constantly updating it, removing it, taking it away. So if it's the only picture of the cupcake that you get for the 3Ds models in the chapter, that's fine. Just go ahead and insert it. And it's going to have its own tab. I think they do have you size it, and I think it's pretty small. I think it's just 0.75 in the height, which will automatically shrink it down to that. And I think I can't. They have it in front of text. I think they have you set it up here. Up here. They'll have you click on it. Go to it in the wrap text. They do have it. Make sure it's in front of text, and I think they align it to the right like that. And why they call it 3D model, because you can grab it and you can move it all over any angle you want in your document. That's why they call it 3D. It's kind of like a 3D object. All right. Now let's say we have, let me kind of go back. Make sure we got it done. I'm just going to do a split screen so I can see my instructions. Make sure when you're done and you're about ready to submit it, make sure you save your updates. Please make sure you save your updates before you submit it. Now move along in the book. That's finalizing and discusses that. It talks about inspecting the document and for accessibility. So go through those steps. Okay. There's 3D model. Here's talking about the backstage. And it's going to talk about printing. Again, you do not have to print these. I want your actual file. They'll talk about, here's where they talk about submitting it. We will not be using the My IT Lab system. So it's right up here for my instructions. We're going to be using the actual drop boxes I've created in the course on Canvas. Okay, so you're all done. I'll hit the save button again. We know where it's saved. If you want to submit it to me, you'll go back to the course. There is a drop box and it's labeled like we're working on project 10A. That's what we had in the book. We're on 10A. If I get a title right here, 10A. So I got a drop box out here in Canvas. Ready to submit it. Click on 10A. Oh, sorry folks, I got to do one setting because I got to change my view. I got to go to student view. Sorry. Go to student view. Go to modules. So I always forget to do that. I always collapse stuff when I'm done with it because we're done with week 1. We're done with week 2, so I'll collapse that. Done with week 3, 4, 5 are done. Should be done with the midterm today. So right here we got 10A. I'll click on it. Got some further instructions here. Okay. Let me kind of maximize the screen because I'm not seeing everything. Okay. So I'll click on this button here. That's something new. Let me reload that. It's got the start assignment. That's something kind of new to a new update to Canvas. Once I click that, it comes with a submit assignment button. Okay. I'll click the upload. Then I'll choose a file. Then I got to navigate. Remember where you put your files at, wherever you made that folder. So if we go to remember we created that folder in documents. There's my student data file folder that I created. There's the folder I created for this chapter 10, and there's that file. But make sure you save your changes because this is when you submit this is going to save the current state of that file. So I'll select it. I'll open it. There it shows it. And then I'll submit assignment. And you know you got it submitted. Kind of refreshes, gives you that, and it shows right up here. And you can download it if you wanted to. Okay. Now this is going to be, when it comes to these assignments, these are not automatically graded. I will come here, usually I will be on Mondays, unless, I'll inform you if I don't get them done on Monday. It's going to be due Sunday nights. I'm going to have, or Saturday night, sorry, excuse me, Saturday night. I will have, I will fill out this actual grading sheet. Let me kind of leave student view. Hoping to leave student view. There we go. Just slow. Well, I already got one person has already submitted it. But I will fill out the grading sheet, and I will leave, if there's something wrong, I will actually put comments into your grade. So when you go to your grade book, you should see icons to where you can see your grade and also see any comments that I may have left you. Okay, you can also leave me comments for these assignments, but don't try to communicate with me through the comment area of the drop boxes, because it will not notify me that you did do it. If you got a question, always email me. Always email me. But that is submitting it to a Dropbox. All right, now I'll go back to the book and let me kind of, these remaining activities are just optional. Okay, you don't, it just goes over the office help features. You really don't have to go through these if you don't want to. It's nothing that you got to submit, but I just kind of want to make your way to where you can see right here we've done with 10A, and then if you keep going on the chapter, it moves on to 10B, even though they got the 1B mistake there. We're not going to do this because this is really, again, has everything to do with this using Windows, and I know some of you don't have a Windows machine. Okay, let me see. I'll go back, and I'll go back to my modules. Again, that's really kind of how the rest of the chapter will work. You know, I'll have assignments and activities. I'll have presentations where I have videos out here that I've created. There's also PowerPoint presentations. But it'll be the same thing like in 11A and B. 11A, when you get that chapter, will be a blank document. 11B will be a document that you'll open up and modify and save underneath a new name. And 11C is really kind of an end of chapter assignment. But I'll post some more information next week about those assignments. Okay. Now, if you, I know this has been kind of a lengthy video. Hopefully you'll watch it all. If you need help, email me. We'll set up a Zoom meeting. I'll go over anything in the chapter, especially anything I didn't cover in this video. Or if you want, we can sit down and go over the entire chapter. Just email me. We'll go over it via a Zoom meeting. Okay, that's the end of this video.